Welcome and good evening to another episode of Couples Talk. As usual, I'm here with my wonderful co host, Joshua, and we're going to discuss something again for you guys. I know you guys have missed us, and we're glad to be back here with you again. So, our topic for this evening is called The Five C's to Rejuvenate Your Marriage. So, you're wondering, the five C's, what are we talking about? But in each marriage, sometimes we have a little lull, we have a little break, we have a little downtime, because marriage sometimes can be like a roller coaster. And there are times when you need to find ways of getting back in connection with each other. And they use this kind of correlation with terms that are beginning with the letter C, of course. So by using these five terms, and applying them to your marriage, you can help to rejuvenate your marriage from wherever it may be and bring back the spark and bring you to a place of where you can look each other with love in your eyes and smile. So yeah, so we're going to go into this discussion. Just what do you think of the topic? Because I'm sure when I pick the topic, you're wondering what's going on with that topic.
For me, when I look at the topic and the points that come out from the topic, it lets me recognize that so much of these things starts with me. If I seek to find my happiness simply from an external source, meaning what Charlene is going to do for me, I already see there's going to be some challenges. There's always going to be some gaps that Charlene just can't fill in me. And God has designed us in such a way that it should be inside out. He's asked us to, as you love others, as you give, there's just a karma that takes place that you receive that which you give. That's why sometimes it says when you're going through things, take the opportunity to help others, to do volunteer work and so forth. You get a sense where you get an appreciation for person. You see things in a different way. So as much as we're looking at rejuvenating your marriage, it's important for you to start with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really comes out for me.
Yeah. So we're going to jump right into the five different points. The first one we have is chemistry. Chemistry, that thing we learn in school where chemicals mix together and something explodes. So when you mix something in a marriage, something explodes, something rejuvenates, something excites you. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about, chemistry. So just to put up the first point on the screen for us. So chemistry is a natural and mutual flow between two people. It's not just about physical or sexual attraction, but a desire to know more about each other. So that excitement that flows, that takes place, and I want to know more about Joshua. Even though I'm attracted to him physically and sexually, I want to know more about his mind, his thinking. Because when we met, even though yes, he's good looking, it was about what it is he had to offer from the mind, the mental perspective that drew me to him.
You know, when I hear the word chemistry, I automatically assume that it's supposed to be something that is external to an intentional action. It's like you're supposed to just mesh. And if you don't mesh, it means you're not meant for each other. Or if you just don't connect, you're supposed to just come into a room and you've never spoken to each other and you're supposed to just be chemistry. The fire is supposed to just be just sparking. And when you get into marriage, you get into a serious relationship. You get into a point where you have life goals. You come to realize some of these fairy tale TV show hallmark movies that we just get brainwashed thinking that if things don't automatically happen, that there's something wrong with each of you. I like this definition because it shows even in the word chemistry, there needs to be an intentional action of getting to know the person. So it almost sounds like it's boring because we're supposed to just click the fire that we used to have when you a lot of that,
Like the Mills and Boons book.
yeah, a lot of that is initial attraction, some of it infatuation, some of when real life starts, you realize you got to be intentional. You realize you have to be able to want to know this person, and we've said it in the past, you need to make your spouse a study, a school that you never graduate from, one that you want to learn and get degrees and doctorates and PhD on top of a PhD as it relates to your wife. relates to your husband. You want to be able to get it. So even the word chemistry is not just something that you're throwing to different
Well, I didn't do chemistry in school, so I'm not 100% sure. So you'll have to go into more in that. I was more of the business student, so and the irony of it, and now I'm the psychologist and you're the business.
right. So but the reality is there needs to be some intentionality, and even it says that it allows one to develop a connection by being open, curious, accepting, and respectful. It's interesting that even in the word chemistry, you're hearing things like it helps the relationship to unfold in honesty. These are words that it takes purpose. It takes purpose to be honest, especially in situations where you think by being honest here, it may cause hurt feelings. It may cause someone to have a different perspective of you. You might have a difference of opinion. But even in the chemistry that you've developed, it gets you to a place that you can be respectful of in when situation not there. You can be accepting. You can be open-minded, and that's all ties into the chemistry that you want to develop with each other. Chemistry don't mean you are exact, and in most chemistry composition, it requires different chemicals to be joined together to create
Or like
something that is
H2O, like H2O. See, I know something. H2O.
there you go. Right, you can't get water unless you're actually mixing hydrogen. Is it hydrogen?
You asking me?
Right.
I don't know. I don't even remember what H2O means.
Let's look at a Bible reference here. Matthew chapter 19, verse 6. It says, "So then, they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate." A very spiritual, a very strong and spiritual lesson to us in that as God has put you together, there is something of a blessing that takes place there, and you were not designed to separate, which means if you have differences, if there are real challenges, and God is saying there was no, I had no intention for you to separate, and God will never give you something that He don't think you could handle, and this is in a relationship where both persons have a trust and believe in God. So it comes with a caveat. If both persons is not trusting God, obviously there will be some divide. But even where one is leading, God could still come through for that. The second one, John.
Common goals. So we both have goals. I have my goals. Joshua has his goals. We both had our goals before we got married, and we even have some of them we brought into the marriage. But even during your marriage, you can have individual goals, but the individual goals must not divide your relationship. So you might have to compromise and have some common goals in order to pursue and progress the relationship forward.
After doing several of these series, so much things come back to memory for some that we've done in the past. One of the first series we did was on budgeting. And one of the topics that came out of that is that we both need something that pulls us forward. It's what brings you through the day when things are not going well. It's what allows you to make certain commitment, make certain sacrifices. It's what tells you that, you know what, that's the reason why I can't eat out every evening, because we have a goal to travel and see the world together. And because of that, we want to be able to save. Because we have a goal to wake up in the morning and exercise is the reason why I'm not going to stay up all night and binge Games of Thrones, even though I've done that in the past. So there are times that you're going to need to make sacrifices so that you could go bed early together because you want to wake up and help each other to exercise, or you're going to decide that I'm going to make a sacrifice to come home early from work because we have a goal that we will be able to enrich our relationship, that I want to be there to help the kids. I want to help them with their homework because my wife has been home all day. So I want to come there to relieve her so that she could take a break and do something that she's passionate about. Maybe you have completed your education and you want your wife to complete their education, and you make a sacrifice so that you could give her time so that she could pursue her dreams. It's important that we both have goals that pulls us forward, and those are the overarching goals that are bigger than ourselves, And when you have that together, it makes it easier for you to support each other on some individual goals that are not polar opposite. So it can't be that one person have a desire to take up a job in China that's going to keep you in there for 10 years because you want to see the Great Wall of China and work there, and somebody else has a desire to go and go to Antarctica and see there, then those are polar opposites literally. And we may want to come closer together. So it says here that goals offer your relationship deeper meaning, connection, and when shared, it brings you closer together. Whereas competing goals create tension. The other one there says it expand short, am I saying?
Letting individual goals diminish common ones negatively affects the relationship. One must find a balance between both as it allows for a healthy partnership.
All right. And we have a Bible reference. We've made a commitment to kind of share you some I would say a lesson from one of the books that we cannot ever exhaust. There's always so much value there in the word. Ecclesiastes 4 verse 12 says, though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. And when I hear a threefold cord there, I'm not just thinking about um, three thread woven together, but I start seeing the spiritual implication that God has for us. When you and your spouse and God come together in unity, it is impossible for anything to come between you and the goals that God have for you to attain, even when it seems insurmountable. When you're able to come together in union under one common goal with God, the sky is the limit for what you could achieve together. The third one ties right into that.
Commitment. I'm committed to you.
And I'm committed to you. It has to be intentional. In this world, everything is designed in a way to separate you. Social media is designed to have you glued to your phone, your mobile device, while your spouse is right there for you to talk and to engage with, and so on. The entertainment world is there to grab your attention, keep you glued in, because they want to have your eyes as not necessarily taking place. So much of the world today is forcing us to work more hours to go out there and to be able to make ends meet, that you end up in such a routine that you literally have to have a level of commitment for each other for you to stay together. The world wants you to separate. And when I talk about the world, again, I can't seem to get my mind off today just the spiritual battle that marriages face from a day-to-day perspective. It's no longer something that is cherished. It seems like it's, when you look at a lot of the sitcoms, the married couple is boring. Marriage is a thing of the past. It's not exciting. It doesn't have the thrill of what you see of someone taking a break and finding a fling on the side. And so the world has now glorified affairs. It's now glorified the grass on the other side. It's now glorified the things that now makes what you have within your marriage seems to be something that you should just up and leave. The divorce court seems to just be the convenient thing. If it's not working, don't waste your time. Let's go and try something new. But we're saying to you that within that decision that you make, that I'm going to make this work. And I'm hoping that it is both of you that is able to say, I'm not perfect, and I know my spouse isn't perfect, but I want to make this work. Can we try to do it together? What is it that you need? And I'm going to be honest and tell you what I need. And let's be vulnerable with each other, because it's best we try that now than you go through the phase of being non-committal, and then you have years of regret wondering, why didn't I make a good effort? What about you, Sean?
I was so engrossed in what you were saying. I didn't even think of something to say.
Then you could help us with a reference that we want.
A commitment is a process of making a pledge or decision to do something. When it comes to relationships, this means being open and honest with your partner about what you want out of life together. Give me a second. It's important for both partners in a relationship to make time for each other while still taking care of their own needs as individuals too.
All right, and we have another Bible reference here, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9. Did we have this already? No, two are better than one. It's just a different version. It says, because they have a good reward for their labor.
I don't think we had that text before.
No, it
Pause
was,
for 412.
yeah, there was a slight variation there. The fourth one is communication. I don't think you could ever have a relationship session advice or the things, the keys to marriage or any relationship without touching communication. God, in his divine wisdom, have given us two ears, one mouth, in perfect proportion.
Yet we use this more than we use this.
All right, it was a lesson for us to be effective in communicating. We have to be able to find that balance between listening and speaking. But so much of us want to share our voice, our perspective. We want to make sure we get it in front of you. We want to make sure that maybe if we get it out early into the atmosphere, it might change whatever you think. So I want to convince you even before you open your mouth. And I'm not interested to understand where you're coming from. I'm not listening to understand. I'm listening so I could rebut. I'm waiting just for an opening. Since you take a pause, I'm ready to jump in because I want to win the argument.
Yeah, effective communication is so important in relationships because many times we fail to realize that if we don't speak, we don't listen, that the relationship will have glitches, hiccups, issues, because it's not an automatic thing. Every day is a renewal and a commitment in terms of growing your relationship. And every day you have to take the opportunity and be intentional to communicate well with your spouse. So there's healthy communication and negative communication. And we don't seem to realize how important it is to have healthy communication. Sometimes we're concerned that what we will tell our spouse might hurt their feelings. But you have to be honest in love. You have to be able to say how it is you feel. You have to be share and listen to what it is you have to say. Because you're two different individuals trying to become one. It doesn't mean that your speech will always be one, but it means that you'll be able to complement each other. So there is an importance with communication.
All right, and let's look at the Bible reference here. It says that James 1:19. It says, so then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. And I love the order of that because if we spend the time to listen, it gives us a new perspective on things. It allows us to have a level of empathy sometimes for the situation and putting ourselves in the person's shoes. If has a way of calming us down and maybe seeing something that we did not think about in the first place. And the fifth and final point we want to share with you as we talk about this topic of the five C's is consensus. When you think of consensus, what do you think of, Shawnee?
It's basically both of us coming to an agreement, having an understanding of where we want to go in the relationship. So after we decide we're going to be committed, we decide we're going to communicate, we could decide we're going to have common goals. What is the consensus? What is the end result that we want to have this relationship? So as I stated, a consensus is a win-win approach to goal achievement because it allows for mutual needs and opinions to be embraced in the relationship.
I like that. It says here it produces dialogue between parties so that negotiation can happen. Ultimately, consensus leads to compromise when necessary in order to reach the best possible solution for all involved. I think it's such a it should be a goal of us to get to a win-win scenario. And that might take compromise on both parts, but it's a good thing when you recognize it. Remember, it says two have become one. So you're not compromising for some external party. Your spouse is part of you. So you're compromising for yourself. It's like you compromising saying, you know what? I'm not going to eat an apple today. I'll take a banana. But you're gaining because when your spouse gains, it enriches the relationship and you gain. So it's an investment into something that you've already have. It's like you owning a bank and you decide, you know what, I'm going to put some money in it, and you got to decide, you know, is it going to be this investment or that investment? But it's yours. The bank is yours. Your spouse is yours. If you invest into your spouse and you be able to come to a win-win scenario, then you both gain. All right. Let's look at the final Bible reference.
Ephesians 4, verses 2 and 3. With all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace.
All right. So just for a quick recap, we're talking about the 5 C's to rejuvenating your marriage. And the first one we spoke about is chemistry.
Chemistry.
You want to be able to be intentional. So chemistry here is not just this spontaneous reaction that takes place. There is an act of being able to reach out, being able to be open with each other. There's an action here that gets you to a point of honesty. The second one,
Common goals. We both have individual goals, but we both have goals that we want to propel the relationship forward. Like we both know we want to have maybe a rental property or we want to travel. We have our own individual goals, but those goals are what going to push our relationship forward. And it will also be able to influence in terms of how our individual goals take place. So we can decide to take sacrifices. I'll do mine first, he does his own after, but we're both going to achieve it.
commitment. You,
Commitment.
you need to start your relationship with some unwritten rule. One of the rules we have chosen to adapt is that we will never use the word divorce callously. We will remove it out of our vocabulary. You have to be careful about the decisions that you make because once you say something, you can't take it back. All right. Number 4,
Communication. Yes, sometimes it's difficult to communicate with a spouse, but you need to be intentional about it. Pray about it. Ask the Lord to help you to be able to communicate better with his spouse. Sometimes you just need that push. And if it is you're praying and you think it's not working, because some people assume that, find a professional, go to a counselor and say, I'm having trouble communicating with spouse. What tips can you give us in order to bridge that gap for us to move forward so we can better communicate and heal that broken relationship?
and the final one is consensus. And in short, you really want to get to a win-win scenario with your spouse. You want to make sure that you're investing in each other, which may at times mean you may need to compromise for the greater good. Because if your spouse is being enriched as an investment into you, because as we said, two surely can become one. If this is of value to you, and surely it has been, we would really ask you that you would share this with a friend, share it with someone that you think just need to hear this. Maybe share it with your spouse, be able to watch it together. Because we believe that if we're not intentional about saving each other, about lifting up each other, it's going to be very difficult. I think today, so much of the world's activity is just designed to make marriages very difficult. We got to be intentional to be able to save those marriages that we come in contact with. If it's not for ourselves, it's for someone else. Um, Please make sure that you're able to like and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you click that notification bell so when we post more videos like this and when we go live, you will be notified. Anything from you, Charlotte?
I just want to remind everyone to focus on the 5 C's in your marriage. And I like the way how they summarize it into 5 categories because sometimes, we try to go all over the place looking for areas and where it is we can build a relationship. But if you focus on the 5 C's, you realize it encompasses a lot of areas in your marriage. And by putting some effort into those areas, you can see improvement in the relationship. Pray about it, go to God, and if you think your spouse is not as forthcoming as you would like them to be, don't force them. But you make an effort to implement it and ask God to lead and direct and for Him to change your spouse to come around that you both can enjoy the benefits and the fruits of the labor.
All right. So thank you for joining us this evening. Please remember to join us next week, same time, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so that we could continue to share. If you have any questions, please feel free to share it in the comments. And even if we didn't get to answer it in this session, in our next session, we'll do our best to answer. Take care until next time.
All right, bye.